And that, of course, was Crimson and Clover by the legendary Tommy James and the Shondells. And I don't toss that word around loosely. We're talking about someone who's sold 23 gold singles. He's had 9 gold and platinum albums, sold over 100 million records worldwide. And songs like I Think We're Alone Now and Crystal Blue Persuasion and the aforementioned Crimson and Clover and Dragging the Line, these are songs that aren't necessarily tied to a time period because they've transcended that time period, either through cover songs. I think Tommy's one of the most covered artists ever, and also the fact that the songs never stopped being played on the radio. And there's a show happening next weekend in Clark, New Jersey. It's Music Fest, and at that show, with the Alarm and the -5 and Fastball and They Might Be Giants and Glenn Tilbrook of Squeeze, and a ton of people are there. Tommy James will also be there, and he is with us on the phone. Thanks, Tommy, for being on the show with us.
Well, thank you. It's great to talk with you.
Can you tell us, we're going to get into a lot of different things here, because you've also got a book coming out with a very interesting title.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second, but is there anything you can tell us about the song that we were just listening to, Crimson and Clover?
Well, Crimson and Clover, of course, was such an important record for us. It was the biggest single of our entire career. We did 5.5 million singles within the first 8 weeks of its release, and of course it's just kept selling. And the thing that was so important about it was that it was the record that allowed us to make the change from sort of AM top 40 pop to album rock. And we were just very fortunate to have that record at the time. There's quite a story about it. I won't get long-winded, but just so you know, we were out on the Hubert Humphrey campaign, the election of 1968. And when we left, the acts that were hot were the Rascals, the Association, all
right.
Singles acts. We get back 90 days later, and it's Crosby, Stills and Nash, Led Zeppelin, Blood, Sweat and Tears, all album acts. And in that time period, there was this mass extinction of singles acts, and it was the beginning of the very serious album market in early 1969. So we were just very fortunate that we were working on Crimson and Clover at that moment, because I don't think any other single that we ever had would have allowed us to make that transition besides Crimson and Clover.
And it's a very trippy production.
Well, it was the first record that we really got to just full throttle do all ourselves. The group was very much involved with me on that, and we just barricaded ourselves in the studio. And strangely enough, the whole record came together in about 5 hours. And it was the first record that we really took full credit for producing, and it launched, I guess you could say, the second phase of our career.
Well, and it's also a song, as I mentioned before, you've been covered so much. Joan Jett had a hit with that, and recently Prince.
That's right.
covered
Prince
it.
just took it to number one.
Yeah.
He had actually with his digital album went number one. Crimson and Clover was the first single from that album. So, yeah, it's been around a while. It's like crabgrass; you can't get rid of it.
Well, I want to take you back for a moment. This is going to lead into talking about your forthcoming book.
Sure.
Which I believe February, I think, of next year.
February 16th. Yes.
Okay. Now this is quite a story here. Your first record was Hanky Panky, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now this, I consider that like a garage record.
Sure.
Right. And you were signed to it's kind of a confusing story in a way, because I think the record was made a few years before it became a hit.
I mean, basically what happened was I had cut Hanky Panky back in high school, and with my high school rock band, the Shondells, and we recorded it in my hometown of Niles, Michigan, a little town in southern Michigan, in a radio studio. And it was released locally and went number one in about 6 square blocks, and then died because we couldn't get any radio airplay outside our little universe back there. And so the record just kind of died. I graduated from high school the following year, and took my band up through Rush Street in Chicago, and up. We were all over the Midwest. And we came home very dejected and out of work in early '66, and I get a call from Pittsburgh that that's how God works. Just at that moment, I happened to be home,
Right.
and got the call. They had tracked me down that one copy of the record had been played at a bunch of clubs, and everybody wanted to know what the record was, and they bootlegged 80,000 of them and sold them in 10 days in Pittsburgh, and we had outsold every 45 up to that point. And, I was just blown away because, this was one of those only in America stories.
Sure.
It was a miracle. And I went to Pittsburgh, and sure enough, the record is sitting at number one, but only in the city of Pittsburgh. And so a couple of weeks later, we were in New York putting a deal together with Roulette, and that began... I picked up the first bar band I could find to be the original Shondells because I couldn't put the original group back together. So, that started my career, and that was just one of those amazing stories that probably can't happen anymore.
And it leads into, maybe another kind of amazing story, and that's the story of Roulette Records.
Sure.
And I should mention to people that the title of your forthcoming book is Me, the Mob, and Music. So
right.
now we're going to have this brief conversation about this, but should I be worried about someone
No,
meeting me?
no, they're all gone now.
Okay.
Well, basically, the short version is that Roulette Records, the label we ended up with, quite frankly, was a front for the Genovese crime family in addition to being a record company. None of us knew that at the time, and about two-thirds of the book is, even though it's an autobiography, but about two-thirds of the book is the explanation of this crazy life that we began leading, trying to have hits and having all these, pop hits with this very sinister story going on behind the scenes of the running of Roulette Records. And I really never felt comfortable talking about this until the last of the Roulette Record people, passed away.
Right.
And but they were quite literally the heads of the Genovese family. And so the head of Roulette Records, Morris Levy, was a very notorious character who was obviously connected and financed by these guys. And but Roulette itself was almost used like a social club. Don't get me wrong, they were having hits too. They were an amazing little company when it came to hits. And so the whole story is this kind of crazy existence of having hits in the middle of all this nuttiness, that we were having to deal with, walking on eggshells. I guess I should have known. Red flags should have gone up when we came to New York with Hanky Panky. And this is, I talk about this in the book, that we got a yes from Columbia, a yes from RCA, Atlantic, Kamasutra at the time, and the last place that the record was taken that day was Roulette. So the following day, we're staying at the City Squire in Midtown Manhattan, and one by one, all the companies call up and say, "Listen, we got to pass." I said, "What do you mean you got to pass? You just said yes yesterday." And finally, Jerry Wexler up at Atlantic leveled with us and said, "Look, Morris Levy at Roulette Records has called up every one of the record companies and said, 'This is my freaking record.'" And he says, one by one, they just all back down. And he says, "We're passing too." And so we were apparently going to be on Roulette Records. And that's a true story. That actually happened just like that. And so, that was the beginning of this really crazy relationship.
But, I guess that, they obviously did take that record label seriously.
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong. They were marvelous. Nobody could sell singles better than Roulette. Getting your money was like taking a bone from a Doberman. But this. But of course, that's what makes this story so compelling. Is that while people are listening to Mony, this very dark, sinister story was going on behind the scenes, and we had to somehow pull that all together, and it was sometimes really scary.
Well, you had to do that without, obviously no one knew about this.
That's right. None of the fans really knew. I mean, the radio guys did. A lot of the trade papers and the radio guys, knew what was going on up there, but very few of the fans did.
And it sounds like something that, first of all, I mean, if there's one book, I'm telling everybody out there, if there's one book you should read, I mean, sounds like a really great story, and it sounds like it could be like a film or something.
Well, it's going to be.
Okay.
About a month. First of all, we landed a deal through Simon and Schuster for the book to come out, and it comes out in February, and we're doing it. By the way, it's already up on Amazon.com and all these other places you can buy. You can pre-order it, but at any rate, about a month after we landed the book deal, we got a call from Martin Scorsese's office in L.A. And our jaws just fell open, and we were Martin Scorsese's going to make the movie.
Wow, he's the perfect director.
Nobody does wise guys in rock and roll better than Martin Scorsese. And so the plan is to have it come out approximately 1 year after the book, give or take a little bit. But that's the plan. And so we're just delighted that all of a sudden it's going to be not just a book but a movie too. So we're very high on that.
Well, I can imagine, and I mean that's it's quite a story, and it promises to be an excellent film and a great book.
Thank you.
I wonder nowadays, with the world of MP3s and file sharing, I don't think the wise guys could get their hand.
No, it'd be awfully tough nowadays. The thing of it is though that the music business of the I suppose from the middle 50s to probably the early 90s, maybe the late 80s. These were the people who were running a great deal of the business. I don't mean that they were totally running the business, but I mean a lot of this was going on, and Roulette was sort of ground zero for all this stuff. You're right; it ended with downloading and things like that because there wasn't a physical commodity that you could control at that point. So, so this has become history at this point, sort of a historical insight.
I want to mention to people also, once again, this Music Fest next weekend, and I did some online research on you in terms of, I went and looked at like recent performances that you've given, because when someone's had a long career, they'll come on stage and suddenly, you'll hear the records and they'll be bright and bubbly, and then they're on stage and they're like, I think we're alone now. But it's not the case.
No, I've been very
lucky.
I've been very fortunate to maintain. I've basically kept the voice and most of my hair and teeth, so I'm feeling pretty good about the whole thing.
So I mean, you when you see Tommy James, you're going to hear, you're going to hear a bunch of songs. Are you going to play some of your stuff from your latest record too?
Well, yes, we are. Actually, we've been very fortunate because we've been able to keep making new music, and as the years have gone by, we started our own record label, Aura Records, and we're able to put out all kinds of new projects. The 3 projects that are in the stores right now is our live show at the Bitter End in New York, both as a DVD and as a CD. And secondly, our Hold the Fire album, which was actually our last studio album, which we did a year and a half ago, came out a year and a half ago, and that was our first studio album in a long time. And then our Christmas album, which will be out in late October, which we just finished, and our 40-year package, which is all of our hits sequentially from 1966 to 2006. And so all of these 4 packages are in the stores at the same time now. Or you can come to TommyJames.com. Just come to the website, and it's all the stuff is there.
Sure, you've got a little store section on there where you
Sure.
can get all that stuff.
Yep. And so we've been very fortunate that we've been able to keep making new music. And I wanted to say one other thing. One of the things that's so great about this movie is that it's brought together back the original Shondells, the original players that I got in Pittsburgh. Are together again. We're doing a new album, but we also have recorded a couple of songs for the movie, and we've done a very different kind of a version of I Think We're Alone Now. We're very slow, and there's no drums. It's just very slow and dramatic, and that's going to be in the movie, and a very different kind of feel from the first record.
Wow!
So all these things are really fun, and it's so great making music with the original guys again. I hadn't made music with these guys. I had the newer group, but I had not made music with the original players, in 35 years, and it was so great getting back in the studio with these guys. It was like it's like riding a bike. You never forget. It was so amazing because everybody knew what vocal part to take, and it just was really wonderful.
Well, we're going to wrap this up shortly here, and once again, I want to mention to everybody Music Fest next weekend, September 12th and the 13th in Clark, New Jersey. Tommy James and the Shondells on the bill with, I also mentioned the -5 and the Alarm and Third Eye Blind and a bunch of different acts.
It's going to be fun, by the way. It's going to be a gas, and just looking forward to seeing everybody, and want to thank you, Dave, for all your help with the date.
Well, it's my pleasure. But I have to mention this, and I think you know where I'm going with this. You're playing a music festival.
Yes.
Okay, next weekend, and 2009 marks the 40th anniversary of Woodstock.
Yes, indeed.
And you were. You knew where I was going with this.
I did. You want the story, right?
I want just the quick story, because look, this didn't hurt your career at all.
No, I know exactly where you're going with this. What happened was, the week of the original Woodstock, we were in Honolulu, and we were in between dates. We had one date in Hilo and one date in Honolulu, and we were literally on vacation. There were 2 weeks in between these dates, and we were at the foot of Diamond Head, where the biggest decision of the day was whether to go in the pool or the ocean. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, and by the way, Crystal Blue was #1 that week.
Wow.
So we were, a lot of good things were going on at that moment, and I get a call from my secretary, Joanne, at Roulette, and she said, listen, Artie Kornfeld, who was one of the promoters of the original show, was a good friend of mine. He also was a great producer, did the Cow Sills and a whole lot of other acts. But anyway, the point is we had the same lawyer. And so they got word back to Joanne. She says, listen, Tom, Artie says, they're putting on this gig in upstate New York, and it's at a pig farm, and they say it's going to be important. He'd really like to have you play. And I said, wait a minute, did I hear you right? Did you just say leave paradise, fly 6,000 miles to play a pig farm? Is that what you just said to me? She said, well, you could say that, but they say it's going to be important. A lot of people are going to be there. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. If I'm not there, start without me, okay? And I hang up the phone. And by Thursday that week, we knew we screwed up really bad. They closed down. We're watching TV, and every hour that goes by, there's more and more people showing up to this thing. And we couldn't believe it, so we knew we messed up really bad by like Thursday afternoon. But in the end, I got more mileage out of telling the story, probably, of why we didn't go. Anyway, that's a true story.
Well, thanks so much, Tommy, for being on the show this evening with us.
My pleasure. Believe me,
it's an honor to have you on, and so many great records, and even obscure songs that I've I'm a big fan of Cellophane Symphony, that record, and some great hits like Out of the Blue, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
I love that record, your performance on that. But I want to know if it's okay with you, if I can close out this interview and go right into a song, and I'd like to play. REM covered a song of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you mind if I play Dragon the
Do
Line?
it. They did a nice version of it, too.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tommy, and we look forward to seeing you at the show.
Great talking with you, Dave.
You too.